All right, I'm going to go through how to do a profile cut on the CNC machine. First of all, we're going to open up this V-carve Pro, and then we'll create a new file. In this particular case, I'm going to make one that's, let's go, we are 12 inches wide. Let's go the height of 8, and the width of, well, the width is or the thickness is really important because a profile cut is going to cut the entire way through the wood. So we have to know the thickness of the wood so we know how deep to set the cut. So we'll use a caliper, and I don't have a set of calipers that I can show you right now, but I can help you when you're making this. So let's just say our wood is 3/4 inch thick, so 0.75 inches. We're going to set this right here in the center, the XY in the center, and then we're going to go okay. All right, so what we have here is a rectangle. Now let's say what we want to do is we want to create a sign that is that we want to cut a shape out of here. Now we could cut a circle or an ellipse, a square or a triangle, different angles here, polygons. We could do a star, those kind of things. In this case, let's say that I want to cut this out as an oval. So I'm going to click here. If I know the exact size of my oval, I can put it in the width and height. But if I don't know, I can just close that out, make those at 0. I can go right in the center here and right click. And then from there, I can hold that right tab down on the mouse and I can stretch it out. And I can resize it if I need to. Now let's just say that I'm okay with that right there. So I've made this oval. I'll hit apply and close. So I got this oval here. One thing that's really important is I have to be able to clamp. So when we go on the CNC machine, we have to be able to clamp this down into place. In this case, I can put a clamp in the 4 corners and I'm not worried that the machine, the router, or the bit will hit the clamps. If I was doing like a rectangle and I went all the way to the sides here, I would have no place to clamp. So you got to keep in mind that you got to give yourself room to clamp what you're doing. So you keep that in mind. Okay, so let's say I'm going to cut an oval out. Let's say also I want to cut a star or something outside of this, inside of it. So first of all, this should be centered, but I can hit the centering tool here and make sure that I'm centered on my wood, which it looks like it is. If I want to make a star, click on the star and I can make a 5-point star or 6 or whatever size I want. Let's go 5-point star. I can adjust this. So I'll change this to 10 and go 5-point star and create one. Okay, you see what that looks like. Now, you're going to have to experiment some. I don't love that. So let's make another star. In this case, I'm going to go 5-point and I'm going to change this to 20 and apply. Now, what I did is I just changed that existing star. So if I go with that same star again, that's what it looks like now. And I change this to 22 or 26 and apply. Notice how it changes. I can do the same thing with this. I can change this to, it's 2.9 now. Let's change it to 4 and apply. And it changes the size of it. We can change this. So if I change that to 3 and apply, I don't know exactly what that did, but it changed things a little bit. Okay, so let's change the size down. I don't want to. Let's go down to 2. So there's my star. Let's say I like that star there, but it's not centered. I can hit the centering button and I can center it. Now, you can mess around with different shapes and different things. That's not what I'm trying to teach here. What I want you to teach is how we make these profile cuts. So a profile cut is cutting this completely out, or in this case, we're going to cut this star shape completely out too. Now, we're going to have to do these in 2 separate cuts. This one has got to be our last cut. This one will be, in this case, our first cut. We want to finish it for our total outside cut last because this is where it's going to be clamped to. So we'll go to the star. We'll go to tool pass. Now, when you were making signs and using words, we use the V-carve. But in here, we're going to use a profile tool path. which uses different bits. So we're going to click on here. The start depth is 0. Now, the depth that we're cutting through is 0.75. I usually like to go a little bigger. I'm going to go 0.76. That's going to go deeper than the cut. Now, when we clamp this on, when we're doing a profile, we have to clamp a backer board behind it, a board that will hold this off of the base of the table. That way, when we cut through, we're not cutting into the table itself. So I'm going to clamp this with a 3/4 inch backer board behind it. So when it cuts all the way through, it's cutting into air, or that backer board, it's not cutting into the table. So I can go a little deeper. I'm going to go 0.76. I need to use an end mill when I do this kind of cut. So I'm going to, right now I got a 1/4 inch end mill. We have an 1/8 inch end mill, a quarter, I think I have a 3/8, and I have a 1/2 inch. Because bits are rounded, you can't make real sharp turns with it. Um, Usually we use a 1/4 inch one. So that's the one I'm going to use now, but we can adjust that. If whatever bit we use, that's the bit that we have to install in the machine before we make the cut. So I'm going to use a 1/4 inch one. I'm going to hit OK there. We can cut on the line, we can cut inside the line, or we can cut outside. And I want to cut outside the lines here. So I put on outside. We want to add tabs. And what tabs are little, it's cutting the whole way through. Well, they're little tabs that are not completely cut through in a spot or two. So this star doesn't fall through. And sometimes when it does, what happens is it chips it out as it hits the blade. So I'm going to add tool paths, or excuse me, tabs to the tool path. And I'm going to edit them. And I'm just going to put 2 in. I'm going to put one here, and I'm going to put one here. Okay. It will select how many times how many paths it will take. So I'm going to rename this here. I'm just going to call this star, and I'm going to calculate. Now it's going to say error warning because I set this is deeper than what the thickness of the wood. I have a backer board behind it, so I'm okay with that. Okay, again, we have to put a backer board on the machine when we put it on the machine. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to preview this, and this is what it's going to look like. Now, this star itself will be cut out. This is the tab. So it cuts most of the way through. I don't know if we can see it. See, it cuts most of the way through, but it leaves a little tab there that holds it into place that we will eventually have to break off and probably use a chisel to do it. This star is not a super pointed star. Again, it's a round bit, so we can't get super fine corners, at least not on this outside one. Okay, so we have this cut out. All right, that's our star one. Now I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go back to my 2D one, and now we want to cut this part out. So now I need to highlight this. So now it's red. We'll go to Toolpaths. We're going to do Profile. Again, this doesn't change because this is the same thickness here. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch end mill again. I'm going to add tabs. So in this case, I'm going to put 2 tabs in. I think I'll put one there and one here. I'm going to go close, and I'm going to get calculate. And if I preview it, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to cut this out with 2 tabs in there so it doesn't fall the whole way through. Okay, if I like this, this is what I want, now we can cut it. Now we have to cut it in 2 separate tool paths. So when we clamp it to the board and we do all the centering out there, the first thing we'll do is a tool path that cuts the star out, and then we'll have to go through and do the second tool path that cuts this out. Okay, which cuts out the outline. So what I would do is close it. I would hit this save button right over here. You go save toolpath. Okay, I'm going to hit save toolpath right here now. So let's do the star first. So I'm going to click on the star. I'm going to hit save toolpath there. Now, I don't have a USB disk in there, but I would go find my USB disk, and I would I would highlight the USB disk, and then I would hit save, and it would save it on there. Then I would have to go to the profile one, and I would click the profile one. Now the profile one we could have renamed. I forgot to do that. I'm going to rename this one and call outside. Okay. So now I want to save this one, which is this part right here. That's that one. I'm going to go save. And then again, if my USB was in there, I would click on the USB and I would hit save and it would save that. Then I would have to take this over to the machine. I would take that USB over to the machine, and then we would go through the process of clamping it on, getting everything ready to go, and then we'd run the star toolpath first, and then we would redo it again, and then run the outside toolpath. And then we would have this oval shape with the star cut out. Does, and that is the basics on the profile cut.